New videos every day.
Each day when I come into work, I'm confronted with this question of what do I want to make a video about? What is it that I want to tell to some 8,000 some odd people? What do I possibly know or that I could possibly share that would be helpful or interesting to other people? And hopefully I can come up with something that's going to be interesting or maybe even helpful to the people that actually end up clicking on the video. So while I was pondering all of these things, I actually did think of something that I thought might be beneficial for you. And it's really something that characterizes an attitude that pervades every single Psychetruth video. It's something that means a lot to me personally, and also something that's helped me get through a lot of the struggles in my life. And it can be best summed up or described in a quote by the Buddha, which goes a little something like this. Do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in anything simply because it is spoken and rumored by many. Do not believe in anything simply because it's found written in your religious books. Do not believe in anything merely on the authority of your teachers and elders. Do not believe in traditions simply because they've been handed down for many generations. But after observation and analysis, when you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to the good and benefit of one and all, then accept it and live up to it. So this quote deals with how to tell if something is true or not, and how to personally decide for yourself what you're going to accept and what you're going to reject. So let's take this quote apart line by line and see if it has some usefulness in our lives. Do not believe in anything simply because you've heard it. Now, this one is pretty obvious because sometimes people lie. And even if someone is just uttering something, that doesn't necessarily mean that that statement is true. And it's not uncommon to see that the media and advertisers are lying to us as well. Sometimes they make really ridiculous claims like Coca-Cola will make you happy, or drinking this beer is going to make you more attractive to hot girls. And I bet you could think of a time in your own personal experience that someone has lied to you. Do not believe anything simply because it is spoken and rumored by many. And this one really hits home at that idea of common knowledge, like when people say, everybody knows that blah, 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 when really and truly, just because everyone is saying it, certainly doesn't necessarily mean that it's the truth. I mean, there was a time when the majority of people accepted that slavery was justified. And there was another time in history when people believed that the sun revolved around the earth. And Galileo, after looking for himself, observing that this wasn't the truth, came out and said, hey, you guys, actually, the earth revolves around the sun. And he was persecuted for that because it wasn't the accepted belief. And I can't help but think that there are probably beliefs that we accept as truths, and even scientific truths, that one day are going to end up being proven wrong. Do not believe in anything simply because it is found written in your religious books. Now, I don't want to hate on anybody's religious beliefs. I'm not trying to start a religious argument, but I just want to point out that there are a lot of people out there who believe that their religious scriptures are the immaculate word of God, and they follow it very, very literally. And they accept that the words in those scriptures are perfect, infallible, and absolute, even though sometimes they may directly contradict somebody else's scriptures, which are also believed to be perfect, infallible, and absolute. And there are some people out there who believe that homosexuals and people who commit adultery should be stoned to death, simply because it was written in their scripture from some 3,000 years ago. Do not believe in anything merely based on the authority of your teachers and elders. And this is probably the most pertinent line to people in our modern society, and its ramifications fly right in the face of our current education system. because so many people have been indoctrinated to just accept as truth anything stated by an authority figure. But in my personal experience, I've never met anyone who was right 100% of the time. This is something that we see frequently in our videos. People will leave a comment saying, "Are you a doctor? Has your statement been validated in a scientific study? Do you have a degree in nutrition?" And these are all calls for authority, and they're based on the assumption that if an authority figure says it, then it must be true. This appeal to authority is indoctrinated in us through the education system and through the mass media. When we're told to go write a research paper, we aren't expected to observe for ourselves or to propose our own experiment, or even just to write about our personal experiences. Instead, we're expected to go read up on what the experts or authorities have said, and then to carefully footnote our sources. So we're not being taught to think for ourselves, but actually just to parrot what is said by somebody with a PhD, or something that appeared in a scientific peer-reviewed journal. The mass media exploits this reliance on authoritarian information by always quoting experts whenever they quote a story. And while certainly an expert is a good source, we have to remember that this statement isn't necessarily true simply because it's stated by an expert. And we have to remember that sometimes people lie, and sometimes even experts will lie. Maybe there's money involved, or maybe they're trying to sell you something, or maybe there's even a conflict of interest at work. There's a common practice in scientific journals called ghostwriting, and if you Google ghostwriting, you'll be able to find out all about it. But essentially, a pharmaceutical company will have their public relations or marketing department write a scientific study. And then they will pay a doctor to sign his name at the bottom, as if to give authority to that article like the doctor wrote it himself. And this kind of marketing trick is used to give that authority, or give that feeling of authority, of expertise to that study. The reliance on authoritarian information, or information that comes from an authority figure, is that oftentimes that information can be contradicting, and it can make it really hard to know what to believe. So for instance, in nutrition, you've got thousands of different experts all spouting what they believe to be the perfect nutritional truth. So you have one guy who says to eat a high-carb diet, and another guy who says to eat a high-fat diet. You have one person who says that fat is what causes high cholesterol, and another person telling you that high sugar causes high cholesterol. You have one person telling you that you should never eat meat or any meat byproduct, and another person telling you that meat is a very healthful thing to eat. And to make things even worse, each of these experts, all that have contradicting information, all have credentials like MD or PhD at the end of their name. Relying on an authority to tell us what is true is actually a type of mental mind control. It's a kind of intellectual slavery that's more akin to hypnotism than it is to actual education. So what happens when someone is hypnotized? The hypnotist becomes the ultimate authority, and suddenly anything he says is the truth. Now, I'm certainly not saying that authorities are always wrong or that experts always lie. Sometimes they're telling you the truth, but the error is to accept anything as truth simply because an authority says it. So even if an authority is saying something, the value is in looking at it for yourself and then deciding whether or not you believe what has been said. So let's take an example. The weatherman. Weatherman says that it's going to rain, but I want to point out that if he says it's going to rain and then it does rain, it isn't raining because he, the authority on the weather, said it was going to rain. It's just raining because it's raining. And I'd also point out that sometimes the weatherman says it's going to rain and then it doesn't. Perhaps we've been indoctrinated to rely on authorities too heavily. Perhaps we've been hypnotized a little too much for our own good. It's the worst in the education system, where if you don't memorize and parrot back exactly what your professor said was the truth, then you're probably going to fail or flunk. And oftentimes, authorities will enforce their truth on you by using force. So, I'm your boss, and what I say is right or you're fired. Or I'm your professor, and everything I say is the truth or you fail. Or I'm a priest, and you should agree with every single thing I say or you're going to burn in eternal hellfire. Or I'm a policeman, and everything I say is right or else you're going to jail, etc. But here at Psychetruth, nothing is sacred. And I never believe something simply because it's stated by somebody who has a degree. And likewise, I never believe that something is incorrect simply because it's stated by somebody who doesn't have a degree either. Now, I personally have never read a book where every single statement in that book was 100% correct. I think it's just an aspect of our human condition that we're really incapable of being correct 100% of the time, all the time. As human beings, we just have a somewhat limited breadth of vision. And since we aren't omnipotent, no one person can have a complete and total view of everything. And that's not to say that when you read a book by an expert that he doesn't have some of it right. Chances are he's actually stated a lot of things that are true and are correct. But a book contains thousands of individual ideas. And when I read a book, I try to take each of those ideas and evaluate it on its own. So not accepting every idea as truth simply because some of it's true or simply because it's coming from an authority. And there are some books out there that are actually full of more untruths than they're full of truths. But that's not to say that I won't read that book. Because as I'm going through, I might actually be able to pull out some things which are true and carry those things with me. And everything else I just let go of once I put the book down. Now, to me, this means learning to think for myself rather than relying on someone else to just tell me what to think. Now, the end of this quote says, "But after observation and analysis, when you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to the good and benefit of one and all, then you accept it and live up to it." Notice that it says observation and analysis. So this is telling you that you actually have to take this idea aside and then analyze it and assess it for yourself. So how does one analyze an idea? Well, the proof is in the pudding, or the answer is in that statement. It takes observation. I believe that for any idea to be truly meaningful for a person, they have to be able to take that idea and compare it to their personal experience, and then observe whether that statement is true or not. So there's a big difference between somebody spouting off some quote from an expert saying that grapefruits can be used for weight loss, as opposed to someone who actually eats some grapefruits and then is able to observe whether or not they were able to lose weight. I believe that people should do what works for them. Never assume that just because something works for someone else that it's going to work for everyone. Each person has the responsibility to find their own path, to find their own truths, and to observe what is real and what is true for them. And then to have the integrity to do what they believe is right and to follow their own truths, even if it might be in contradiction to what most of the other people are out there doing. And that's true for any video you see me in, or really any video that you find on this channel. I don't expect you to just believe me because I'm cute or because I'm on the YouTube. I expect for you to assess it yourself and determine what's true for you. Often I make videos about things that I've found useful, things that have been useful to me in my life, and it's my hope that these things may be useful to you and yours. But I'm no religious leader, I don't have a political agenda, I'm not trying to sell you anything, I don't want your blind faith. If something that I say doesn't work for you, then by all means I would expect and hope for you to throw that out. It's in the spirit of sharing that I make these videos. And it's my hope not that you'll just believe everything I say, but that you'll be an independent thinker and that you'll determine for yourself what's really true or not true for you. On the subject of truth, the American Psychiatric Association has recently created a new disorder called relational disorder. Now, this is actually a mental illness that you don't have, but that your relationship with another person has. So is it possible for a relationship to have a mental illness? In a future video, we're going to take a closer look. And in another video, I'm going to give you my 10 personal truths, my 10 tips, things that you can do to improve your life for the long haul right now. If anything I said in this video resonates with you, I hope that you will be sure to share my video, friend us on the Facebook, and give me a thumbs up. I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that there is something you've always wanted to do, but you've never actually done. If that sounds like you, check out my video, Why You Can't Change. If you're feeling unhappy, down, drained, unexcited about life, I would encourage you to check out the video Maslow's Expanded Hierarchy of Needs, which goes into detail about how we can truly be happy. I mentioned in this video that sometimes marketers and advertisers will lie to you. But to find out how these lies might actually be making you completely miserable, check out the video Happiness and the Story of Stuff. And to find out how these lies might be making you feel really, really badly about yourself, check out Happiness and Boob Jobs.